Hey everyone, welcome to Punkcast. My name is William Maxwell. I'm a student of Web3 and the owner of Punk9527. Cryptopunks are 10,000 uniquely generated characters stored permanently on the Ethereum blockchain. No punk is the same. This is a show dedicated to celebrating the punks behind the punk. My hope for this podcast is that we capture the essence of the punk culture, elevate the brand and the individual behind the punk. One last thing. Projects discussed on the show is not financial advice. Crypto and NFTs are a volatile and risky asset class. Please always do your own research. Other than that, let's go. Hi, and welcome back to another episode of Punkcast. I'd like to welcome Punk7901. He's a 3-addy with a handlebar mustache and two of the most iconic traits in the collection, 3D glasses and the top hat. Today, we've got one of the best collectors of culture and founder of Neustreet, a platform media, data, and analytics platform for sneakers, trading cards, and NFTs. Please welcome the one and only DefianceWorks to the show. DefianceWorks, welcome.
Awesome to be here. It's awesome to be here. Yeah, I saw what you were putting together here, and I had to get involved. So yeah, no, it's awesome. Immortalizing us punks for as long as we're here.
No, I'm excited to have this conversation with you. I think, having a few conversations on a few of the other punk casts already, I think that question I always ask is, who's your favorite punk? And your name's popped up a couple of times. So
I have no idea why, but that's does warm my heart. So no, I appreciate that.
But mate, so if you wouldn't mind, maybe just give us an introduction to yourself and background, where you sort of grew up and, obviously to the extent that you're willing to share that.
Yeah, gosh, where I grew up. Now that's an interesting one because I actually do start there nowadays because I'm running a company that does data transformation and whatnot in the collectible space. So I can actually start there. But I actually grew up in Florida, US. Definitely didn't come from any background of money. So I got a little bit of that chip on my shoulder, like some of us do. Started out as an 80s baseball card collector, turned into a Wall Street technologist for a long period of time where I was working at Bloomberg, building OTC systems and derivative technology and really getting on the inside of the Wall Street beast and seeing it for what it is as a technologist, seeing how it really, truly fundamentally works and actually hating the shit out of it, to be honest with you. Just a lot of the Wall Street side of the things, the culture is just the most backwards culture you can imagine. And it's really the antithesis of everything we see in Web3. And that's why I love Web3 so much. But anyway, so I went from Wall Street technology to data technology. I ran a startup in New York for a little while, exited that, came to where I'm talking to you now, which is in Detroit, Michigan. My time here has been spent building news automation technology for financial technology companies, doing some consulting. And then I actually made a pivot pretty hard from traditional finance to Web3 when I was out here. So I was an old Bitcoin guy way, way back in the day. I've got my $98 Bitcoin transactions that I definitely didn't save any of it. So I'm definitely not a Bitcoin billionaire, that's for damn sure. But I got reacquainted with DeFi back in 2019, 2020 because of my traditional financial background, right? And so I saw these building blocks on top of smart contracts, and I was just instantaneously saw exactly what this was and exactly where this was going, and basically decided over a couple of months to dedicate the rest of my life to these sort of principles of decentralized finance and technology. So I happened to be in the Sushi Swap Discord the first day it opened. I was a big Uniswap user and all these other things, and I just I was totally a damn the man type of guy. And so this was perfect for me. And so, I went through the whole liquidity vampiring situation with Uniswap and, really just had a crash course in DeFi. And then along the same time, I was collecting art on Super Rare. And so that was really where I started coming into NFTs because in a parallel life as a collector, I was also collecting art in New York, physical art. I could never afford the really good stuff, but that's just the kind of bags I had. I mean, you talk about art. We can talk about that a little bit later. But I mean, the price of art versus traditional art versus digital art, I think a lot of people are going to be shocked when digital art finally catches on. But so anyway, in the summer of 2020, and I'd kind of given up Wall Street technology. I was back into collecting baseball cards like everybody else was. And, I just basically my background fundamentally is data technology and putting together disparate data sets across different markets. In this case, in my case, in the financial markets, but markets all resemble very similar things. And so, when you look at the collectibles market, which is baseball cards and, NFTs and a bunch of other things that you might considers collectibles, they're really similar to alternative assets. And so I decided in 2020 to start a company that essentially rallies around these collectible assets, which are really just alternative assets, and builds, financial-esque data sets that are necessary to support like the growth of the industry. So we're building data technology for Pokemon cards in Neustreet land. And then over the top of that, you see some things like media right now. But the media is not our core competency. It's the data underlying it. And so you'll start to see data APIs that people will start to be able to use to build products on top of our data in the next month. You'll start to see a platform like a Kayak for collectibles where you'll be able to go in and search for these cards or sneakers or whatever else. And you'll be able to find where you can buy them on the internet and what they are. And then we have a pretty cool media operation that now, given this open AI stuff, is really just, as a media person in my past, you can see how this chat GPT stuff really can make media models profitable again. So, we've also got this data beast hooked up to this media production systems that are being now birthed in GPT-3 and GPT-4. And we can really do a lot of damage with the data married to these content systems in terms of content production at low cost. So that's a lot. I'm all over the place from anywhere from collectibles to messing with the decentralized finance to like, JPEGs to trad art. I am a pretty much a crazy person. So
No, I love it. I think we could, talk for hours on each one of those individual topics, but maybe if I could just pick on one. And actually, maybe before we get into that, I forgot to sort of ask you as well, why DefianceWorks? Where did that name come from?
oh gosh, yeah. So that's funny. People think it's like potentially a non. It's a domain name that I was really enthralled with that I had bought the day before I registered for a Twitter handle or something. And so I just was like, what the hell do I call myself on Twitter? Eric Witchin seems really dumb. Eric, like, DefianceWorks sounds cool. So I typed it in and the rest is history. I didn't intend it to actually carry me through to anything, but now I own the domain name defiance.works. It's kind of a thing. It's nice that I can use it as like a general abstraction layer when I need to, but it's definitely not intended to be anonymous because I run a company in the US. You can easily find me, and again, it's more so not to make it super easy to find me, but it's definitely not like some people you interview that are probably trying to really be anonymous. It's not me.
And so, talk to me about your collecting journey. Like, how did that all start? Was it baseball cards when you were a kid? Were you buying comics as well? Like, what was your sort of dip into collecting?
I was a baseball card kid that like didn't even really like baseball. It's weird. It's like, I just really had the collecting bug. Truly. I mean, I just like, as much as I try to like sports, I do like sometimes sports, but not really. And so like, I'm just a collector. And so I was collecting baseball cards, which is what every kid was doing in the 80s. I started collecting like Marvel cards and things that were more like in tune with what I liked, but there really wasn't a lot of stuff back then. And I wasn't a comic book collector. Like I missed that generation a little bit. And I was also a little bit too old to be like Magic, Pokemon, and Yu-Gi-Oh! So luckily I had a younger brother and he was a big Pokemon collector. And so I looked over his shoulder and I saw what he was doing. I was like, oh shit, this is cool. And so I actually got into Pokemon back in the day too. Probably a little bit older than it was socially acceptable at the time, but whatever. And so that just transformed into things as my life evolved. So the collector bug in New York when I was on Wall Street was art. And so I was buying limited edition prints from Moreau and Renoir and like Matisse and like all the like they're like the works on paper and stuff like that. I moved out to San Francisco for a while. I don't drink, but I actually started collecting wine because I was able to get access to a lot of the wine clubs out there that were these like the scarecrows and all that stuff. Like I was like, okay, this is a great trade. And so I still own them because I'm a collector and I never sell things. But I happen to have a pretty good wine collection as a result.
What kind of collector do you think you are? Do you look for, rare, undervalued items, or are you like the type of person that needs to have a complete set?
No, rare, undervalued, and that's my MO. I don't have the big bag that a lot of the other because I'm truly like an art collector. I'd say that if you would look at what I do versus like what a lot of the punks that are more on the art side, like I guess 6529 and like a couple others that collect, but I definitely don't have the bags to go after the 200, 300, 400, 500 ETH, items. And so luckily I've been very good at spotting artists as they're emerging and I've been able to grab a couple grails, along the way. But yeah, no, I don't even know if I answered your question.
No, you collect more, I guess, rare, undervalued pieces, and
Yeah, it is. Like I'm more of a buy and hold guy. I'm definitely not a trader. That's for sure. Definitely not a trader. I've learned that no matter how much I can learn about stocks and bonds and all this stuff, like there's still a certain bit of voodoo to trading. I just don't have like I don't want to time the market and I don't have time for it in my daily life. So definitely don't trade.
So if you're not really into wine and you're not really into baseball, what was it about collecting that really got you excited?
It's the thrill of the hunt. It's the cultural relevance and artifacts that I'm really looking for, you know? It's like I look into the history of Burgundy, and I look into the history of Bordeaux, and I start to, research the most important, vineyards, and, like, really get into the culture of it. So, you start to understand the importance of, Romani Conti, versus others, and you start to really understand Mussini and, like, really weird shit, right? But, it's not about drinking wine. Like, that's a really, like, an ephemeral, super, like, official like, experience, in my opinion. Like, yeah, it's cool, but, like, what's a lot cooler is understanding that, like, 500 years ago, like, Napoleon was there. Like there's some really crazy stuff if you start to look into it. So I get really caught up in the history and the cultural importance and significance of things. And I think that that's almost 100% of what I go for when I'm collecting art, collecting baseball cards, or whatever. I mean, like, evidenced by, if you look at my biggest collection in cards, it's actually Colin Kaepernick. And so I went back after he went completely to zero. He was in the depths of hell for a while, PR wise, but I saw him as a very interesting, culturally relevant, significant, image, a character that is going to increase in value over time, because what he's saying now is actually what people will be saying in mass in 10 years from now. And so, it's stuff like that. It's not like about the sport as much as it is the culture and the layer on top of what these people are actually doing.
Oh, that's fascinating. I mean, I used to collect basketball cards growing up, so I sort of understand a little bit of that. I really enjoyed it. I mean,
Yeah, it's fun.
pulling out Beckett magazine once a month and
Yeah.
checking out the prices and swapping with your friends
The
and
Beckett,
all
yeah,
those other
the
bits and
Beckett
pieces. So
catalog, yeah, that's, oh my god.
yeah,
I have
yeah,
some sitting around here somewhere from when, like, I was cleaning out my closet, from my childhood, and, I had a couple of them. It's just like,
old school.
it's just that, like, when you think about it, right, Beckett is a guide that gives people product information, a catalog, product information, and price for baseball cards. Neustreet is essentially taking that model and saying, "We can do that for, like, everything that's on the internet." And so basically we're able to then curate that information, because we're data technologists, really good at getting the information. We get the information, we're able to make it available to people. And then it makes just the world of creating services and products on top of this much, much easier. And then it creates the hobby that I love much, much better. So,
We can dig into that in a moment, but I'm just a little bit interested in digging a little bit deep into your background. So you've got the collector sort of psyche and bug. How did you find your way into data at Bloomberg and OTC trading and all those other elements? Like, were you always like a mathematical, quantitative kind of guy, or
yeah, big time. I was a super geek. So I went to college. So I was super underprivileged, not underprivileged, but, like, I definitely didn't have any money, like, I'm growing up. And like, I was going to college, and I was like, all right, what am I going to do in college? Like, I'm glad I got here. And then it's like, finance seems like the thing to do because the finance people have money. This is how bad I just, like, literally, like, went to college, and I was like, all right, what do I do here? I was, like, really good at math. Let's do finance. So I started doing finance. I really quickly hated it, because it was just, like, it was too superficial, and it wasn't the application of the problem. It was a superficial application of math that I was really looking for a deeper sense of. And so I actually ended up doing a lot of math and a lot of computer science that I actually never got credit for, because my scholarship wouldn't allow me to get a degree in two things. And so it was, like, kind of wild. Like, I ended up doing most of a math degree, most of a computer science degree, all of a finance degree. But it was all just passion, right? It was like I got the degree and I thought that was all I needed. But then I realized, hey, I probably would have been better if I had a math degree on my resume, because then, like any responsible person that doesn't know what the hell they're going to do next, I went to law school for 3 days, 3 whole days. And on the third day, it was like the money back guarantee that, like, nobody knew about, but I read the fine print. And so, got out of that, didn't know what the hell I was doing, moved to New York. Oh, buddies of mine had moved up there 6 months before, because they'd not gone to law school like I had gone to for 3 days. And I just lived on their couch, didn't know what the hell I was going to do. Interviewed at a bunch of places. I had 3 job opportunities. One was with Moody's Ratings, one was with Bloomberg, and one was with Morgan Stanley. And the only one that I was really interested in was Bloomberg, because I saw it as a way to get into finance and use my degree, but then quickly get somewhere else using my brains and stuff. And so it actually ended up being a 13-year decision, and I did a lot of really cool stuff at Bloomberg. And honestly, Bloomberg's a wonderful company to work for if if you don't know if you really want to go to Wall Street, you have a good head on your shoulders because you can do a lot of different things there. Couldn't say enough about the company. But yeah, I didn't intend to be there for 13 years, but I ended up being there for 13 years.
And you made a few points about all the things that you saw, I guess, on the back end workings of OTC trading and Wall Street. And you're sort of suggesting that, crypto, and that's why you love crypto so much. It feels like it's the antithesis of the real TradFi world. Can you elaborate on that a little bit more?
Oh yeah, I mean, so what I was doing at Bloomberg was my first job was doing derivative analytics and analysis, and so I was actually like doing the analysis on the products that roiled the markets in 2008. So I started in 2005, and I started doing credit default swaps and synthetic CDOs and structured products and stuff like that. And so I was the guy at Bloomberg who was working with the people on the models and answering the calls from all the Wall Street traders, and they were essentially like asking a 24-year-old dude, me, what the inputs to the models should be before they make $1 billion trade. And that was when I saw, fuck, this is not going well. Because it's a bunch of dudes, it's a bunch of white males sitting there that have egos that are unbreakable and probably incredibly problematic due to their white privilege or otherwise backgrounds. And they just don't ever admit that they don't know 100% of what's going on all the time. And so it's just a bunch of people that like are literally sitting next to each other for coordination reasons who will not coordinate for the life of them because they do not want to admit what they don't know. And so they're talking to a 23 or 24-year-old through the Bloomberg terminal and they're asking them what they should do. And I'm telling you, like, if that is probably still going on to this day, where there's 23, 24-year-olds sitting behind this help desk for Bloomberg, that's essentially a badass group of young analysts who answer questions from Wall Street traders who are sitting next to other people that have the answers, but they're not willing to ask them. So I was literally answering questions about synthetic CDOs and like the things that really like, we can't get into it right now, too much to explain, but like there are certain products in the financial system that just shouldn't exist because there just isn't the data necessary to create them. So it's like the products are beautiful. They're beautifully segregated risk and all this stuff. Like they're really, really financial engineering, like brilliant, but the inputs aren't there. You don't have the inputs of the model. So literally you're making it up. So long story short, that was my intro. And then I wore like 5 or 6 hats at Bloomberg. I built most of our corporate strategy for approaching corporations because we were really good at approaching high finance, like sales and trading, hedge funds and such, but we didn't have a very good foothold in corporations. So I moved out to San Francisco and I did a lot of work with Fortune 500 companies. At the end of my tenure there, I was actually running index product globally and the index business globally. And so we acquired the world's largest bond indices, the Lehman indices, turned Barclays indices when Barclays acquired them, and then we acquired them at Bloomberg when I was there. And I was building index technology for, an index technology is essentially taking all these disparate data sets. I mean, like equity indices, commodity indices, FX indices, fixed income indices, like mortgage-backed securities indices, like all these things. You have to know the products very deeply, and you have to know how the data works together. You know what the important KPIs are, because you essentially have to be able to build indices that span across these products. And so I was doing that. And then the last thing I was doing there was building software for direct indexing, which allows for large institutions to take synthetic positions on really anything, I guess, but anything that we have enough data for. And that's really like that's perpetuals. So it's interesting. It's like I was building perpetuals before perpetuals and stuff like that. Like, like Arthur Hayes and whatever, those guys, like, you did a good job. I did it first. No, but I'm just joking. No, but you do see a lot of things in TradFi that have parallels in crypto that like already existed in TradFi. You see a wholesale rejection in certain things in this crypto world of TradFi, but ultimately, all of the things that you see here will materially replace large groups of people in traditional finance. And in particular, it's operational teams. So like you think about stocks, like trading stocks on an exchange, right? So you trade stocks on exchange. That's what most people know about trading. But OTC trading, which we all know very well, that's a different way of doing things. So, really getting to understand how these things connect, how these things trade, and how these things are settled after they trade. So in other words, like I do a trade with you on a bond. What happens during that process? What happens after that process? A lot of people. That's what happens. Like a lot of people get involved and they have to verify things and this is this and this is this and literally like looking I replaced 50 people on a Goldman Sachs middle office desk by creating a Visual Basic macro that took screen grabs of a Bloomberg screen for trade confirmations. Like there's so much fat and dead weight in this market, it's crazy. So anyway, really when it comes to the OTC systems and what I've seen, I think the biggest thing I've seen that tells me that the future is what we're in is the dead weight loss and inefficiency from all the people involved in processes that should be run on blockchain rails.
Yeah. No, that's cool, man. That's a pretty deep and insightful TradFi experience that you've had at Bloomberg. At what point did you discover, I guess, Bitcoin and then make your way into, I guess, assuming it was DeFi summer when you started talking about Sushi Swap? I guess, how did you sort of find yourself in those rabbit holes?
So Bitcoin, I got involved in very early, like super early. I don't even remember the friggin' year. It was like before you could broadly even trade it. And I just saw it was just really interesting. Like the first, like as a financial technologist, seeing what I see and seeing how there's the banks, like you can see how banks can shut things down and otherwise. So I just thought it was pretty novel and pretty interesting that we could have a super sovereign layer of currency. So I bought some. I held on to it for a little while. It ran up a little bit. I sold it at some point. Definitely didn't make a ton of money off of it. But I kind of left crypto for a while after that. And this was pre Ethereum. Then Ethereum came around. And actually, one of my friends was like, dude, this is going to be the future. And I'm like, I don't know, man. Like, I really wasn't even that into it at first because I just didn't think, I thought it was like, I was still wrapping my head around Bitcoin and I was still TradFi. And I was just like, okay, well, I see where you're going with that, but I see it as a novelty right now. And then fast forward into like 2018, I really started understanding like what smart contracts can do. I really started comparing that to what could like DeFi started to emerge, in the first primitives of DeFi in 2018, 2019, like Yearn and those things popped out and other Uniswap. And I was just like, oh my God, this is just it. And so I just started buying things that I thought were interesting from a more of a developer standpoint. Like I definitely wasn't looking at this as a get rich thing. I was looking at this as like what protocols provide value to the world and what's the future. And like I probably should have thought about it in terms of making more money because I probably wouldn't have to worry about money ever again times a million if I had. Not that I ever have to worry about money, but like that's but like a lot of people that I see that like I started like it's funny. I see people I have Discord conversations and Telegram conversations with a lot of people from very early on, like Sam Bankman-Fried and like a bunch of other people, and it's like really interesting to see the kind of questions they were asking when they were asking them. Like they didn't know any better than we did. Like no idea. Like Sam Bankman-Fried actually is a terrifying dude, and he's probably Chef Nomi from Sushi Swap, by the way.
Can you just remind me what happened? Because I think it got drained, and then somebody sent Sam Bankman-Fried the private keys. What was that all about?
So there's a character, Chef Nomi, who started Sushi Swap and with a couple other people, and it was just some anonymous character, right? And so the whole plan was that Uniswap was a VC-led thing that eventually they can turn on a small percentage, like it's 0.3%, I think, per trade, but it couldn't be 0.25 and then 0.05 goes to VCs if they decide to turn on. There's something there that they used to be able to turn on some sort of fee metric. I don't think they can anymore because of securities issues, but anyway, there was something initially there that Chef Nomi exploited in marketing wise. And essentially, we went through this whole thing where we took liquidity from Uniswap, where we all had liquidity, and we essentially brought it to Uniswap, or we brought it to Sushi Swap, and essentially vampire attacked Uniswap, which didn't really vampire attack anything because it was just a temporary liquidity switch shift because all of us just wanted, to earn sushi. And so, it's just so long story short, what happened is as it was emerging, Chef Nomi, the rug, the project, or he sold a ton of sushi into a pump, 30, I don't know, remember how many worth, but it wasn't even, it was like a million, couple million bucks. And then, Sam Bankman-Fried, I'm in a DM with him actually. And I'm like, we were talking about other stuff and it was just weird. I don't know. Like I always got the sense that like there was something going on there deeper. And when this whole Sam Bankman-Fried stuff came out, I was like, okay, that makes a lot of sense. He had been DMing like Hayden from Uniswap about like the AMM like parameters and how to set one up. I mean, it's so perfect because he was building Solana and Serum at the time, right? And so what I think was going on is he needed a foothold in Ethereum, and he wanted a quick way to get a bridge to Solana. And so the only way he could do that is by inventing the Chef Nomi character, right? And then he rugs it. He comes in on his white knight horse, like rides in, saves the day. And then one of the first things he starts to pivot towards is how do we create a bridge to Solana? I think he even said when he was coming in that the only way he can make this worth his while to come in and save you guys is if there's a bridge to Solana built. And so, now thinking about it, it's like, damn, like dude may not have been a good trader, but he was pretty good at being evil. If I was really, because I was talking to Chef Nomi too in DM on other things. It's just there's too many similarities, for me to discount them not being the same person, or at least in high coordination.
That's crazy. We're just like,
But they're good now.
Sushi's good now, right? Like
Yeah, they're good now. I mean, they've been taking it. Like, we took the keys away from him early. It didn't end up falling into his lap the way he thought it would. And so, all is well that ends well type of thing, I guess. But it's interesting to see to think the beginnings of that could have been him.
Yeah, that DeFi summer was super crazy. I think I just got in at the peak of that, and I think I was paying $200 or $300 to add liquidity to a curve pool.
Oh yeah, it felt so good.
Yeah. Oh man, but
I'll take some of those days back. I'm not gonna lie. Yesterday, when CoinGecko was lagging, I was like, "Oh, this feels good. People care again."
Well, man, like, understand a little bit of your background and your journey now, and how you got into crypto. Talk to me about NFTs now. What was your first NFT? How did you go about buying it? How did you discover NFTs? What was that journey like?
So I was a collector, obviously, and that was really kind of as a tinkerer, builder, all this other stuff in DeFi. I think there's two, like a decentralized finance and art are kind of the two things that I care about in life, I guess. And so like I was already collecting art. I was collecting, but I couldn't afford a lot of it. I was collecting, like I'd go to like the works on paper auction at Christie's, and I'd be able to afford like you're talking about like basically discards from artists, like works on paper, literally squiggle, like a Matisse squiggle, and it's like they're selling it for like $20,000, and that was all I could collect at the time, and that's great. And I think it's worth $20,000 because it's truly a piece of culture and history, But compare that to what we're looking at in prices here, and so fast forward, I'm struggling art collector, like literally, like it's the only thing that I found that I couldn't conquer, literally art. Like I could conquer wine, I could conquer watches, I can conquer all these other things. But like art is just so expensive and so hard to get a foothold into it. It really is the ultimate collectible asset. That's the ultimate asset. And so, I understand deeply at this point what blockchain is. It's like 2020 or 2019, 2020. And I kind of understand as a collector what provenance is and why it matters. As a wine collector, I make sure that everything goes directly from the vineyard to my specialty storage facility, and so on and so forth. There's receipts and everything. So I just kind of immediately got the provenance angle. And then, you start to think about what we do all day. Like I'm talking to you through the internet. I talk to my friends on the internet. I talk to my family on the internet. I work on the internet. I create everything I create in life on the internet. Most people do that these days. And so, like, you think about it, and like we've been taught that file systems, because they're copy and pasteable, make that anything that's created on the internet doesn't have value. But it's like, really step back and think about that. That makes no sense at all. I mean, we literally are associating value to like a line on a piece of paper. Like, how are we not like associating value to a medium that we actually use every day now? And so I just didn't understand. I truly understand digital art has value and fundamental value. And as a collector, I was just looking for a way to be able to stick provenance on it, and to be able to say this is mine, and I own this, and nobody else can prove that they own it. And then blockchain NFTs come around, and it was just like obvious. And so I started out collecting on super rare really early, and I was always collecting what I love and never what was. So I wasn't, I didn't get any of the early POC stuff or Fuocious stuff. I love Fuocious, but just never ended up getting one early. And I was just buying a bunch of stuff for fun on super rare. Saw punks.
What was your first NFT? Do you remember?
I don't. I really don't. It's probably actually it is. No, it's true. The first one I can remember is called Truth Vomit from Super Rare, and I'd have to look up the artist, but I remember buying it. It was when ETH was like $300, and I bought it for 3 ETH. It was like really expensive. And I started talking to the artist, and I don't want to say this like bad, but I think he started like really guilt me into not buying more. And I was like, oh shit, like what's going on here? Like I was like, oh, this is not a great first experience at all. But then I started meeting other artists, and I was like, this is great. I met, I ended up buying, actually, the thing that really sucked me in forever was buying the cyber sneaker. which is Artifact's first piece ever, and they dropped it on super rare. And so I saw that and I was like, holy crap, digital fashion. Like, I have a thesis on digital fashion, digital wearables. My daughter in the other room plays Roblox all day long. It's like all these theses just collide.
Got it. And then, so okay, so you got into super rare buying one of ones, and I think you've got a nice appreciation of art and culture and collectibles. What was your first journey into CryptoPunks like? How did you find out about CryptoPunks? What sort of piqued your interest and eventually led to your purchase of a CryptoPunk?
I am a punk at heart. I mean, it's like crazy. Like, I literally went to every Warp Tour when I was a kid and like was a crazy, like, I was a punk rock crazy person. A little person. So like I saw these things like being traded as I was collecting on super rare. And I was just like, that's really cool. And I was like, I definitely want to come back to that someday. And I just forgot about it. And then fast forward to like January 2021 or 2020, I don't even know. I bought my first punk at like 80th, I think. I saw that it's starting to like heat up. I got mad that I hadn't bought them earlier. I bought one, literally intended to buy three or four, but I bought one that day, first day. And then I think 2 days later, somebody else came out, like Shamath or something happened and then they ran up. And then I just held on to the one for a long time. Only had one for a while.
Is it the current one that you have now, or is it a different punk?
No, it was 8901 was my first. So 8901 was my first. It was very hard to sell that, to be honest with you. The only reason why I could justify selling it was because magically 7901, 1,000 less, came on the market, had the same skin tone, had the same exact mustache. And so now I could just like basically say that 8901 put on some glasses and a top hat, got a little fancy. And so that was how but I still, to this day, I still have like issues with selling 8901. Like, I'm literally trying to justify it to you here still.
I got him up, man. He's a clean looking punk, man. He's definitely got those punk vibes. He's got that the handlebar mustache, earring, and the peak, the mohawk, right? So
Yeah, no, the deal, so I was also, so I did a pretty crazy trade for this 20 for 7901. I ended up buying another punk in the depths of the market. So I had 2 punks, and then 7901 came on sale, and I ended up just, like, really like, it was already a pretty good flip because OTC had bought it. And so, psychologically, when somebody gets a really good deal, it's hard for anybody else to go in and buy their bags, but it still could be a really good deal. And that was exactly what the case was here. And so I beat him up a little bit on price, and I ended up paying like 2 punks and a bunch of ETH for it. But I think but I wanted a punk that was like a differentiable and something that was like that I could keep forever. Truly, like 8901 or 7901 will never go on the market. That's pretty guaranteed. And so I now own 3 punks that I can maybe sell a couple of the other ones if I ever need to. But 7901 is never getting sold.
7901 is definitely a grail. 3D glasses alone and just that top hat, very punchy punk for sure.
And the mustache is actually my dad, who passed away some years ago, had a mustache. And so it's actually like kind of like I picked the mustache in the first place as like a thing, like an actual thing, like that means something to me. And so I was glad I could keep that.
Yeah, even sentimental value is even more special, right? But I mean, how did you come across 7901? Were you just browsing and then sort of say, I need to get this one, or
I always wanted a 3D because I respect the hell out of like Richard and some of the other 3Ds, and I think it's like more of, I guess you really look at it, it's like developers seem to gravitate to the 3D. Really just like Top Hat, to be honest with you, is not really my style. I'm much more casual, but it's a kind of a cool like rare trait. And so what I wanted to do is 3D is 260 something, large. Top Hat's like 100 something, so it gave me the ability to have scarcity within the group that I wanted to be in, even. And so, it's like one of those things. Like I keep saying it, and I'll keep saying it till the cows come home. But I think like punks are the equivalents of like the modern day Rolex. The meme is, no matter where you are in the world, and no matter what trouble you're in, a Rolex will always get you home. And I think that in a lot of cases, like the punks is the new Rolex on steroids. Because I truly believe if I ever was in the worst of dire straits, at least the world was still here, right? Then I'd be able to get out of it with selling the punk.
no, he's definitely a grail, and you did really well. And I think you've definitely made it your own personal brand now. I think when I sort of see that, I definitely know it's you.
There's the I mean,
Oh,
I even got
cool.
hats and stuff like that. Yeah, no, I have an embroidery shop nearby that I just throw my punk on my sweatshirts, and why not, you know? Not that anybody here at Kroger is gonna recognize anything, but, you know.
For those that were listening, DefianceWorks just flashed his cap with his 7901 punk right on the front. Mate, and if money wasn't an issue, what would be your dream punk?
Wow, that's an interesting question. I actually think the ape punks are the genesis of everything in a lot of ways. You know, if you really look at like Bored Ape and you look at everything else, like Cryptopunks are fundamentally the driver for all of this. But if you really look at like within, like I think the ape punks are really, really, really special. So if I could ever get my hands on an ape punk, I probably will. But I don't think that's ever going to happen. I think I've missed the boat on that, and I'm perfectly happy with 7901 and what I've gotten forever. It is truly my grail. So I'm really happy that I've gotten 7901, and I would be happy keeping 7901 forever and actually not ever trading up. I probably wouldn't even let 7901 go if I did ever get an ape punk. And I probably wouldn't change my identity. I'd probably keep the ape as like a piece of list art in the background, not an identity item.
It's kind of weird you say that. I mean, I had Sugito on here as well, and at one stage he had a hoodie punk, and he changed his profile picture to a hoodie punk, and people were sort of saying that's not you. You don't. I don't see you as that. And so he just went back to his floor punk, and that's the one he vibes with as well, and it sort of connects with him, and other people sort of see him as the identity. And so
Yeah.
it's kind of weird how people just have a personal affinity to a certain punk, even though there could be another dream punk out there.
Yeah. Yeah, no, it's true. You can't really you switch it up, you know, after a certain point in time. And I think I switched 8901 to 7901 at a good point, but I don't think I could do it again, identity wise.
Mate, and how do you see punks in your eyes? Are they art to you?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I talked to Noah, who's a friend of mine. He's the brand manager for Punk. I know a decent bit about their strategy, you know, their donation strategy and otherwise. I mean, they're truly the birth of an entire digital renaissance in my mind. It signifies where this world is going, and at least where I want it to go. You know, it is like it's completely different than all the other art assets that I own, though. In the same way, it's like it's ultimate liquidity, it's ultimate decentralization, and it's ultimate store of value, but it's got a ton of upside too. And so it's like really, it doesn't fit the same model for any other art that I own, but it's the most important art that I own.
Would you mind sharing a little bit of the insights that you have from Noah, if it's not too private?
Oh no, it's not private at all. No, I mean it's something that is widely known that Yuga owns a cache of CryptoPunks now that they acquired as part of the deal, and they're going to be continually donating them to the top of the top world museums. And so you just saw that they donated one to a museum in France, and it will continue. And the art world is, and I'm actually talking to the DIA out here, Detroit Institute of Arts, about a placement. You know, I mean, you're just going to see them in art museums. It's just, you know, that's the way Noah thinks about it. He's an art guy. He's used to be work at Christie's. You know, truly, uh, Yuga doesn't think about these assets as even related to Bored Apes in a lot of ways, and I think that's great. I like Bored Apes, but Bored Apes is a utility asset that is not an art asset, never will be. With 12 fold, they've guaranteed that they're never going to get any art value, anything they do ever again. It wasn't the play, right? All the plays.
And in this sort of market at the moment, I know it's a little bit bearish, although slightly bullish at the moment post the weekend. Are you collecting anything? Like, do you have your eye on anything?
Just bought another punk
Wow.
2 days. 2 days. Gosh, I mean, yeah, I mean, I'm grail hunting in one of one art, and otherwise, like I just bought a Rip Cache, one of one. I bought got a couple of few Oshus limited of tens that are just absolutely crazy, crazy awesome from his some of the best periods of his creation so far. I think I this whole time. I mean, for the last year since the bear market started, I have been grail hunting for art, and spending a lot of resources. You know, so you know, I've been lucky enough to acquire some pieces that I think are going to be, you know, world changing. So I own the Cow, which is a big one from Grant Yoon. I'm lucky enough to own like Mad Dog Jones's Genesis in super rare. You know, there's so many pieces that I could keep on going down, like the Artifact Cyber Sneaker. You know, so I definitely like this. So it's funny, right? I'm a data technologist, but all the things that I find that are of the utmost value to me are not, you can't really affect with data analysis. So there's something there between, I'm sure. But
It's beautiful. And I think you mentioned Ferocious. He's also a punk too, I think.
I don't know if he owns a Punk anymore or not.
Did he sell it? Okay.
I know him pretty well, actually. Like I was with him at the Christie's auction that he had a little bit ago. He was living in that box for a couple. He actually did a caricature of me that I've got framed downstairs that I cherish.
Oh, nice.
And but I don't know if he's ever owned a Punk.
I think he did.
I'm trying to get Grant to buy a Punk.
Yeah, please do. Well, he tweeted the other day and said something like along the lines, "Punks are going to bring culture into the space," or something like that. I can't remember the exact words, but he was.
You could see, he wants a Punk, but it's a big commitment. And he bought a Fidenza, I know, and that's so we'll get him.
Yeah, for sure. And if you look back at your NFT career to date, any sort of wins and losses worth mentioning?
Not a lot of wins because I don't sell a lot of stuff. I think all the things that I own are the wins. Those are the wins. I don't think about profitability and trading and capturing realized gains as like a win. And so I guess I'm thinking about things like all my like the cow and all the things that I'm just lucky enough to have gotten when I spotted the artist early. Those are all my wins. And I don't really think about losses because I don't FOMO things. I mean, I'm the one warning people about art gobblers. I'm not the one like jumping into it. And so I don't really tend to lose a lot of things because I collect what I love, right? I'm collecting art. If I buy a piece of art and I never sell it again, I'm happy because I wanted to buy the art in the first place. And so it kind of all worked out.
Definitely a punk. You're another purist that I'm interviewing. I think there's a few of you that are like that are just genuine about the space and really genuinely appreciative about the pieces that they buy, which is a beautiful thing.
Like I've done very well. I'm lucky. I'm privileged. I'm lucky to have found my way to New York and to Silicon Valley and all these things. And I made enough money. I'm not like I'm sitting here in a very cheap house, but truth be told, I've probably got enough money, cash, to last me if I needed to. I don't need to be rich. I don't need to be wealthy. I don't even want to be a billionaire. I would give that shit away so quick. And so like I would just like truly like I don't like I'd rather have my Punk than have like a Lambo. I don't give a shit about stuff like that. And I think most of us don't. Like these superficial luxury items, just don't appeal to us anymore.
And maybe another question, just out of curiosity as well. Like, I mean, you picked out some of these artists pretty early. Like, what sort of ticks the boxes? Or like, what are you looking for in artwork and narratives and stories and these sort of pieces? Like, how do you sort of go about that selection process?
It starts with seeing a unique replicable style that seems to be taking hold. Like all starts with I just see it and I love it, and I look deeper into the artist. So it all starts from a point of love. But I think aside from that, what's important is that seeing a style forming. And I know artists hate to hear this, but like you as a collector, you want to see a style forming that's replicable, that they're going to keep exploiting for a while. And not to say the artists can't change, and they do. And some of the best artists in the world have changed dramatically throughout their careers. But at some point in time, the artist finds a foothold in a certain style, and that is what really ultimately gives a lot of value down the line, even to the stuff that's not that style. And so I'm always looking for like some kind of style homogenization and settling in like really comfortably. But then I'm also looking for a lot of like positive influence. Like I think that like Grant and like a bunch of the other people, like they're always in Twitter. They're always supporting other artists. They're supporting art. They're loud, they're vocal, they're leaders. And so a lot of it has to do with leadership and vocality. And that is another thing that sucks to hear as an artist, because ultimately you shouldn't really have to be vocal or loud in order for your art to carry. But that's the way the world works with everything. I mean, like I can be the best data technology on earth, and if I'm not good at presenting myself and marketing myself, then I'm never going to get the value unlocked that I need to. And so, long story short, I look for positive contribution to the community, a style that is settling in and likely to be replicable. And then I don't really look at who's collected them before, funny enough. Like a lot of people do. I don't look at that at all. I don't give a shit, because I know that if I like it and if I can dig in and if I understand who they are and I truly get that like light go on in my head that this is something special, I know that I can help promote it, and I can essentially get more eyes on it. And sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't, but I don't care because I have art that I love.
No, I think you do a really good job at that, man. I see some of your posts and you're really elevating some of the artists that you really love. So,
And I'm never planning on making a business out of that because I think that's like, because that's tough because I've seen a lot of other collectors go into like making a business around that, like, and it just gets dicey. You know, I want to have this perfect relationship with artists where I don't have any need to exploit them and they don't have any need to exploit me.
sage advice. And, mate, can I turn the tables around on you now? Like, who's your favorite punk personality?
God, that is I've thought about this question since I knew this was going to be a question. I can't call anybody out because there's positive and negative influences in everybody. And I'd say that even at the top of the top, there are some punks that are very net positive that I don't know if I fundamentally agree with their strategy. But that being said, we're all sort of that's the point. Punks don't have to all get along. We respect each other. We move in different directions, and then so I guess like I love Sergito's awesome. Love Sergito. Spencer Gordon Sand's a friend of mine, also a punk. I mean, there's so many names that I could go through, and it's kind of hard. Like Isaac's awesome, puts together the punks brunch, in Denver and otherwise. And like funny enough, like there are a couple people that I've met like a bunch of times. I don't even know their names. Don't care. They're awesome. But yeah, it's hard for me to say like the top. I can't really mention too many top influence punks because there's something that I'd have to give as an asterisk if I were to mention their names.
That's perfectly fine, man. And it's hard too because it's just I don't know, man. I just find something special about punks. I think it's almost automatic for me because if you've had the IQ to buy a punk, that already signals a lot about you as an individual. For me, anyway.
Or something.
Or something. Or but from time to time, we always get some grifters in the space.
Banks are melting down. Why not spend another 150 grand on a JPEG? That's what I said the other day. I don't know. I mean, I make fun of it, but I truly agree.
But you laugh at that. That was probably the smartest move, right, during that sort of period.
It is. No, fundamentally is. You can get into the fact that like, you can really do a lot of analysis on punks actually. And it's pretty interesting to see a lot of bigger holders are getting out, and small, like that's another thing that when you look at like, if you want to look at this as an institutional asset, you've got to look at the risk of the largest holders being there and dumping on rain and hell on the world at some point in time. When we start to get really high asset values, like $500,000, $1 million for these things, people really start questioning that. And so there's a really positive trend right now in punks that have 150 punks, 20 punks, 30 punks, and they're selling punks right now through Blur and otherwise. And so some people are like, oh, that's not good. That's the best thing to happen to punks pricing upside ever.
That's cool.
So yeah, I think we're going to see a little bit of an increase in the next couple of weeks, but it all depends on. I mean, I'm sitting here with like even the punk. I've owned 3 punks right now, and I wouldn't have to sell another one for 5-10 years if I didn't need to. So,
and if you would describe punk culture in a few words, how would you describe that?
Punk. I mean, it is like truly. It's like decentralized coordination at the highest levels, and like we're all pretty well able to connect to each other some way in a business or personal sense. But like I'd say punk is the way to go because like there is no word. We're so different.
Punk's always a good word in my book. I'm going to ask you a few questions now, and they might come across a little bit contentious, so you can decide how much you want to go into them.
All good.
So the first one is, what are your views on V1 punks?
One of the things, like I have no negative hostilities there. It's cool as shit. It's a story. It's not going to have the same asset value as the Ethereum like main punks. I mean, it just isn't. I know that as a collector, and so I don't feel threatened. Like that's the thing is, some people feel threatened about this stuff. It's not. It's lore. It's the things that you need in order to like build the value of the thing that you're holding. I mean, it's marketing. I don't have any hostility or animosity towards any like V1s, V2s, V10s, Bitcoin punks. I don't love them. Like Bitcoin, I've warned people against them because people lost a lot of money and probably will continue to do so. But like every time I see a new punk derivative born or talk about V1s versus, Ethereum, I just see it as positive. That's what you have to. There's an inevitability to IP being worth zero. If you think about IP in the same way that you think about IP in this current world where you're protectionary around it.
Totally. I was going to ask you about BTC punks, but you already did say that you were sort of warning people.
Yeah, it's fine. I mean, like the whole ordinals thing. I mean, be careful, guys, because this whole inscriptions like actually been around. But, like, I mean, it's like, yeah, like, but just somebody got a hold of it and decided to weaponize it, and then, of course, some legitimate creation goes in there and starts creating cool shit. But, like, I mean, I have no animosity towards it. I just try to warn people. Like, some people think that I'm, like, warning people against this stuff because I wanna, like, I don't want them copying my JPEGs and all this stuff, or I'm actually really, truly I truly care. I don't want you to get screwed.
What about how did you feel about the Yuga acquisition?
Well, actually, funny enough, me and a couple punks were talking about trying to get a party bid together to buy them from Larva like a couple weeks before, and I really kind of wish that that had been able to play out a little bit more. But in a way, it does not matter. I mean, punks are going to be punks; they're going to continue to be punks. You know, the IP agreement is pretty solid, you know, and it's pretty unruggable. And so, not to say I don't care, but I don't really care, because I think that if Yuga ever gets in trouble, it's definitely a different asset than the rest of them, and so it'll be spun out either on its own. We'll do management buyout or some shit. I don't know. There's enough punks to be able to buy punks if we need to.
Can I just ask what that party bid was about and how that all came about?
Well, we were just all sitting in, we were pissed off because at the time there was no willingness on our lab side to release IP. We kind of thought that Larval was leading us, not like they were just leading in the direction they wanted to lead in. And that's fine. But we thought that maybe they were a little bit tired and ready to let go. Seems like it was the case, you know, and so it was just a bunch of punks really at brunch in Denver who are all business leaders and pretty well heeled. And, you know, we just said, you know, what if we were able to get together a bid for punks and do like a management buyout type of a thing? And I still think that's going to come one day. I still do think that's going to come one day.
What sort of numbers were you thinking would have done the job back then?
Yeah, we didn't have a good number yet.
Yeah.
We just had the commitment and the willingness and probably the capital to do it, regardless of the number. Because the thing is too is we would be able to like you know there's with the group of people that we had, we'd pretty easily be able to raise the money if we needed to. You know, even if we didn't have the money amongst us.
Geez, it's kind of crazy to think that that was possible. I guess that's the power of some of the punks that we've got in our community, right? Which is kind of crazy.
No, we have some heavy hitters. I mean, you know, business leaders, you know, venture capitalists. You know, there's some super super heavy hitting punks. You show up to a brunch and all of us are going to look like this. You're going to have no idea, you know, essentially the power some of these people wield. Um, so it's pretty freaking awesome.
Yeah, man, I sense that all the time. Most of the punks I bring onto the show as well, I'm really humbled by the caliber of, I guess, the whole track record and the history and everything that everybody's done. They're very accomplished people.
So diverse too. You know, you have technology, you have business, you have art, you have culture.
Everything. No, it is. And if you could pass on a message to the next owner of 7901, what would you like to say to him?
There is no next owner. So I'll say to myself, stay the course. Seriously, stay the course. You know why you're here, and you know what matters to you. You need if you don't understand the blockchain and decentralization, you need to. I mean, I definitely do, but you need to know why you're here ultimately, and you need to be here for the right reasons. And that right reason, it really can't be short-term profits because you might make them, but that's not really what you're here for. You're here for the community, and what I've been able to give to the punks community and what I've been able to get from the punks community so far has been infinitely valuable. I think like it's just a really interesting group of people that I would have never been able to get together with if not for punks.
Please said DefianceWorks. This is a wrap, man. But I got to say, man, this is it's been a really fun chat for me and getting to know you and your journey.
Likewise.
And really proud that you're a punk, and you know, hopefully, we'll be able to cross paths one day in real life. But thanks again for joining the show. I guess any final comments on your side? Any final comments, and you know, how can people find you?
Yeah, at DefianceWorks, one word again. You know, just DefianceWorks. Twitter, Neustreet is the company that I run. You know, does data technology for Pokemon cards to NFTs, and so you know you can think about us as like the underlying infrastructure layer for data for people that are building marketplaces and otherwise. But as a consumer, you'll be able to come to our site, type in a product, sort of like you do with lights on Kayak or Google or whatever. Find the product, whether it be a baseball card or a Pokemon card, and then see where you can buy it on the internet, and then just click out to buy it. So a simple workflow tool that's going to save tons of time for collectors. And then just, follow us at Real Neustreet or Neustreet.com. It's funky spelled Neustreet.com. But yeah, follow us along. Media is never going to be a profit center for us, which is very important to me. I think that media has been tainted by editorial money for editorial influence. And I think it's the scourge of media and information. And so all of the media that you see from us will not be promotional. We truly write about what we love and what we find interesting. So follow us on the media. If you have any interest in building on top of our data sets, definitely get in touch. And no, it's been a great conversation. So appreciate your time.
Awesome. Thank you so much for joining the show, DefianceWorks. And looking forward to connecting with you a little bit more on Twitter. And guys, a wrap for Punkcast this week. Thank you for listening. And we'll be back next week with another Punk. Bye for now.